But there is one guiding principle we adopted that I want to share with you. And it's very, very simple, but I think it's very profound. And if you listened to last week's episode on fostering gratitude in your kids, I touched on it there. This is the principle we use as our guiding force when we're building our kids' Christmas lists and buying things for them and trying to figure out what to get each of them, from things they want or have mentioned to us, or as their parents, just knowing them and wanting Christmas to be special for them and have an element of surprise. We've been using this guiding principle since they were very, very little. Do you ever wonder, how am I going to make it through to bedtime? How will I make it to the weekend? Or how will I ever get through this long, hard season with my kids? If you're a mom, you've likely asked those questions over and over again. Hi, I'm Sarah Short. I'm a busy mom of 5 kids, and after almost 2 decades of parenting and asking myself those same questions, I'm here to share with you some of the best ways to navigate through your days as a mom. From life with a newborn, to toddlers, to teenagers, and everything in between, I'll teach you how to walk through every season of motherhood with courage and creativity and come out on the other side smarter and wiser, all while creating great relationships with your kids and a home life you love. My Nana once told me, there's no way but through. Turns out she was right, in life and in motherhood. So throw your hair in a messy bun, grab your coffee, and come have a seat as we talk about all things mom. This is the No Way But Through podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the No Way But Through podcast. Before we hop into today's episode, I just want to thank you again for those of you who have left reviews over on Apple Podcasts. If you haven't left a review yet, that would be awesome, and I would really love it if you would do that. And also, if you'd like to financially support my work here at No Way But Through, there is a link at the bottom of the show notes where you can give a one-time gift or you can become a monthly supporter. And I also want to remind you again, if you aren't already, to follow along with us over on Instagram. That is the best place where you can get in touch with me and interact with other moms over there. All of our email inboxes get bombarded this time of year with sales and ads and all of that. So I'm not as great about email, but you can always get me over on Instagram. I respond to every message I get over there. So if you have questions or you want to send me a message or contact me, Instagram is a great way to do that. So last week was Thanksgiving, and we spent some good time with family, and we got all of our Christmas decorating finished, and we are in full-on holiday mode over here, which I absolutely love. Something you might not know about me is that I have always loved Christmas and Christmas time so much that when I was seriously dating my husband, I told him that if we were to get married one day, I wanted to get married at Christmas time. I wanted Christmas trees in the church and poinsettias everywhere, and I wanted Christmas trees set up at our reception, and that's what we did. And 11 years later, in December, I had my daughter, and we named her Holly because I just love Christmas so much. This is the time of year that's my favorite. I love everything about it. Something else you might not know about me is that I am not a great planner. My real life friends all know this, and it wasn't until this past year that I even kept a calendar. Some of you just gasped because how on earth do you have 5 kids and run a family and not have a calendar? Well, it's a mystery even to me, but I just have become kind of a professional at winging it. I don't know any other way to explain it but that. Sometimes I did put appointments on my iPhone calendar, especially really important appointments that would derail our life if we miss them. But most of the time, I would just forget stuff. And yes, that has been a whole hot mess. About 6 months ago, we finally set up a family calendar at our house. It's one of those acrylic calendars, so it's dry erase, and I can put things on there. And I think my two incredibly organized kids are so grateful that there is a calendar up in our kitchen now, and we aren't complete savages. I'm sure basically none of you can relate to this, but I just never cared so much about having a calendar. And somewhere internally in my brain, I was like, well, we really just don't need one, do we? I'll just keep it all up here in my noggin. But that bit me in the butt so many times. So this past year, we finally set up a calendar, and it's been great. Why did I want to tell you that? Well, not being a planner is not so great when it comes to Christmas gift giving and Christmas lists and all of that. For many, many years, Jason's been sort of the one who handled keeping track of the Christmas gifts and what we had bought for each of our kids and trying to keep it all organized. A couple of years ago, I decided that I wanted to be in on it and sort of know who's getting what. And one of the things I really love about God is that I know he has a wicked sense of humor, because it seems that the people who wing it and don't have a calendar and don't make lists and don't use spreadsheets always seem to marry people who do. So when I decided to get in on this, I found out that Jason actually had a whole color-coded Google spreadsheet with each of the kids' names and all of the gifts that he was tracking for each of them and how much money we were spending on each kid too. I mean, something like that wouldn't even begin to enter my mind, but this fly by the seat of my pants girl fell in love with this spreadsheet boy, and the rest is history. Today, I want to give you a principle that both Jason and I love and that we use for gift giving to our kids. Spreadsheet or no spreadsheet, calendar or no calendar. And while we might not both go about tracking gifts and organizing what's in our brains in the same way, we both do agree on this principle, and it has been something we've been using as it relates to gift giving with our kids for many, many years, especially at Christmas. Another thing you might not know about me, or maybe it goes along with the whole fly by the seat of my pants thing, but is that I really don't like to be boxed in. I don't love rules. I don't like, as you've probably picked up on, anything around there's a specific one way you have to do something about anything. Everything in me bucks up against that. So in thinking about gift giving over the years, and especially when my kids were really young, I would talk to friends about different ways that they were going about choosing how to limit gifts or how to figure out how many gifts to give their kids and anything around that. And I heard lots of different ideas, as you probably do too, from your friends. The popular something you want, something you need, something to wear, something to read. I know several of my friends who do that, where their kids basically get those 4 gifts and they fall along those guidelines. I have friends also who will just use a specific dollar amount, and sometimes their kids get 1 or 2 gifts, and sometimes their kids get many gifts because they really just choose a dollar amount that they're going to spend on each kid, and they stick with that. I think those are all good and awesome ways to go about choosing how to do gifts for your kids at Christmas. For me, I just never wanted to be boxed in, like in any way. There is a lot of freedom in those ways that I just mentioned. It just wasn't something Jason and I ever wanted to adopt. I love the idea of being able to think about each of my kids individually, and sometimes one kid's stuff might cost more than another kid's stuff because of what they're into or what they like. And also, as you know, I don't read books hardly at all, so that wasn't something I cared about. I'm just not the type of person who likes or embraces or wanted to do any kind of system per se, if that makes sense. I absolutely get it that works perfectly for some people, some couples, some families, and I think that's amazing. But it just wasn't something that I ever wanted, and I don't think Jason really ever did either. But there is one guiding principle we adopted that I want to share with you, and it's very, very simple. But I think it's very profound. And if you listen to last week's episode on fostering gratitude in your kids, I touched on it there. This is the principle we use as our guiding force when we're building our kids' Christmas lists and buying things for them and trying to figure out what to get each of them, from things they want or have mentioned to us, or as their parents, just knowing them and wanting Christmas to be special for them and have an element of surprise. We've been using this guiding principle since they were very, very little. And here's what it is. Build their Christmas lists around what they love to do, not what they want to have. Build their Christmas lists around what they love to do, not what they want to have. This is something we apply to our kids' gifts that they get for Christmas, birthdays, special days like graduations for our older kids now. This is our North Star with gifts, and it is something we've been applying to our gift giving with them since they were tiny, tiny little people. I shared with you in last week's episode, in the very first point that I made in the 5 ways to help foster gratitude in your kids, is that we value experiences over stuff. And one of the ways that we really live this out, this idea of valuing experience over stuff, is the one time of year when they get more gifts than any other time of year, is that we go into it thinking about how they experience life versus what they want others to think of them. When I've had conversations with friends or acquaintances about this over the years, how we value and want our kids to value experiences over stuff, one of the most common questions people have asked me, especially around Christmas time, is, so your kids just wake up on Christmas morning and get a bunch of gift cards to places and activities? Nope, absolutely not. What kid wants to wake up on Christmas morning to a bunch of gift cards or gift certificates to places to go play golf or to a jump zone or a little putt-putt place or whatever it is they like to do, and then wait days or weeks to be able to go? No kid that I know wants to wake up to that on Christmas morning, right? Especially if you have toddlers and preschoolers and elementary kids. Delayed gratification is super important, but it's a tough thing to try to teach on Christmas morning. And that really isn't fun gift giving, right? That works great for a birthday party card that your kid is taking to a birthday party and when you're dropping your kid off there. A gift card is great because that kid can then go to Target and pick out something, or you can give them a gift card to a pizza place or a jump zone or whatever. But your own kids on Christmas morning? I don't know anyone who would want to give their kids a stack of gift cards, especially little ones. So if it doesn't look like gift cards to go and do something, then what does it look like? This is really where I want you to stop, and I want you to think about one of your kids, just one of them. If they're 2 or if they're 12, if you stop and you think about one of your kids, I want you to think about what it is that they love to do. What do they love to play? What makes them them as it relates to how they spend their time and what they love to do and who they want to do it with? What makes their eyes light up when they're doing it? Their squeals of laughter reverberate through the whole house. When you build your kids' Christmas lists around what they love to do, then your mind can just explode with creativity and gifts for them, but in a way that will enhance their lives and their relationships with you, with their siblings, with their grandparents, and with their friends. and not just end up with a pile of stuff sitting on the floor on Christmas morning that will end up scattered all about your playroom or house for you to pick up over and over because it's entertaining for like a minute and then tossed aside. But if you think about your child in terms of what it is they love to do, then not only does your mind begin to swirl with ideas, but you can really create something magical for them on Christmas morning with gifts they didn't even know they wanted. Not stuff they saw in a commercial or at a friend's house or, Lord help us all, from a kid's YouTube ad or from Mr. Beast, but gifts that are tailored to them, to each of them as individuals. Let me give you some practical applications of how this has played out over here in our house over the years. And I really think that will help you think about your little ones or your elementary kids or your teens or your adult kids and how you can begin to apply this principle to gift giving with them and create something really unique and personal that fits your family and celebrates your particular kids. I shared with you this first example in last week's episode. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to episode 12 on fostering gratitude in your kids, I really encourage you to go back and listen to that episode because I touch on valuing experiences over stuff in that episode, and it will really help give you some baseline understanding to what I'm talking about here. But I mentioned in last week's episode that one Christmas, Jason got all of our kids a set of golf clubs. The idea behind him giving each of the kids a set of golf clubs was that he had taken our boys out a few times to play golf with him, and our whole family had gone to the driving range a few times, and it was just something that he was really loving with them, and they were absolutely falling in love with it too. Some of our kids loved it more than others, but even our little daughter had gotten so into it, and it was something that we all loved to do together. So he got them a set of golf clubs for Christmas that year, and over the last few years, we have watched them pick up those clubs and go play golf with friends. Our boys have played with some guys, some older guys, that act as sort of mentors and they look up to them in their life. And Jason's been able to take them one-on-one, different ones of them, different combinations, and go to the driving range. And it has really become something so special in our family. The way this played out on Christmas morning is that our kids actually got a physical gift. They each got a set of golf clubs. But the idea behind those golf clubs was that it was to be used to enrich experiences with each other, with us as their parents, with their friends, with guys they look up to like Justin and Matt and Tim. And it was so much less about what kind of golf clubs they got or what brand name they were, but really a gift that was to make their experience of life and their relationships with people richer, closer, and fuller. Let me give you some more examples of this, because I think as I give you some of our real life examples, then you will really be able to think about how to apply this month as you're shopping for your kids. This one applies to your really tiny little ones who are still playing dress up and still in the world of make-believe, which I know so many of you are there right now. One thing we did for several years was buy costumes, either super on clearance after Halloween, or now you can just go on Amazon or Facebook Marketplace, or you can buy inexpensive costumes at thrift stores because a lot of people have dropped them off. But we hung costumes all around our family room on Christmas Eve when our kids were sleeping. And when our kids woke up on Christmas morning, there were all kinds of costumes that we had hung up all around the room. Our kids were so into make-believe, and they loved putting on Buzz and Woody costumes and running around the house as cowboys and Star Wars characters and Marvel characters. And we got them these costumes because we knew that they would play and run around with toys and play make-believe. And it was something that they did together. And we had watched throughout the year that this was something they loved to do. And so we wanted to enhance that experience and make that experience better for them with each other. Again, did they actually get physical gifts in the costumes? Yes. But the idea behind giving them those was that it was going to be an experience they could share with each other to enhance their relationships and laugh and play and enjoy one another. Here's another example. Y'all know we have 4 boys in our family, and so over the years, we've had just about every sports thing, every kind of sports equipment you can imagine. A basketball goal, footballs, football nets, baseballs, wiffle ball bats, volleyballs, soccer balls, and now that they're older, it's cornhole and spike ball and can jam. But just about every Christmas, one or more of our kids get some type of sports equipment to play outside with their brothers and their little sister and their neighbors. Why? Playing sports outside in the front or backyard or in the street with your siblings or with your neighbors or friends enhances their relationships. Football really isn't much fun if you don't have someone to throw it to, right? A soccer ball, a wiffle ball bat, you need someone to throw you the ball so that you can hit it, right? We have hyped up these kinds of gifts over here year after year because these are the kind of gifts that enhance our kids' relationships with each other and draw them closer. And also, and just as importantly, they help our kids work out conflict. I know it can be really tempting as parents. Believe me, we have been here. Where if this kid goes off and plays with X gift and this kid goes off and plays with Y gift, and them being separated means that there'll be the absence of conflict, right? And some peace for the entire household. Sometimes we just need that as parents, right? We need them to learn to play independently and we need them to be separate sometimes. That's a very real thing and that's very legitimate. But gifts centered around what they're doing together gives them opportunities to work out conflict, to learn to share, to learn to collaborate, and to learn to lose graciously, and if not, to try and try again. Does that mean we as their parents then have more work to do? Yes, but isn't that what we're here for? Isn't that what we're trying to train them in? Is how to work out conflict and forgive, be good forgivers, and to send out into the world adults who know how to be in relationship with other people? If your gift giving is intentional in this way, it can have long-term, really good, really powerful impact on your kids as people. And it gives you opportunities to train them in real life stuff, getting along with others, valuing doing rather than having, and prioritizing relationships over reputation. And here's one of the last things I'll give you as sort of an example of how we've done this over here as well. Sometimes their gift is a trip. Their gifts are something we're going to do as a family then, some place we are going as a family. Many years, the bulk of the money that we have spent has been taking a trip together instead of buying physical stuff for them. Why? Because as Mary Lou Retton once said, a trophy carries dust. Memories last forever. And isn't our stuff, the interior or exterior labels on our clothes, shoes, handbags, cars, often nothing more than a trophy? This has never been more applicable or true to me in my journey as a mother. The stuff our kids get, the stuff that will eventually end up in a landfill or that we end up donating just a few months after Christmas, that's not what our kids will remember. I can tell you this for real because I now have one adult and one almost adult kid. They don't remember the stuff. They remember the memories we made as a family doing things together. Does that include playing football out in the street with their brothers or playing the Xbox that we drove all over town to find that one Christmas, or playing knockout basketball in the driveway with the new basketball hoop we got them for Christmas one year? Yes, of course it does. Sometimes the physical stuff is a gateway to the memories and the gateway to incredible life experiences for them. But if you were to ask my kids what they remember most about their childhood, what they love most about our family and the gifts we've given them that have meant the most to them, it would be the trips we've taken together. And I am not talking about expensive, lavish trips. Those are nice, right? There are a handful of times when we've been able to spend a little bit more money and take them somewhere and spend a significant amount of money. Disney World was one of those examples. I know y'all know Disney is just wildly expensive, and we went to Disney with our kids. But the trips that we have taken with them and the memories we've all made as a family, whether just an overnight to Great Wolf Lodge or the bigger Disney trip, are the things that we sit around and talk about. It's what our kids love to talk about. It's what we talk about at dinner and when Grandma and Grandpa come to visit and when we're in the car, and all of the stuff stacked up a mile high that they've gotten over the years can't hold a candle to the memories we've made together on these trips. And since we're talking about physical gifts that are sort of a gateway into core memories, one year we gave our kids a trip to New York City on Christmas morning. We were actually taking the trip in early January, and we wanted to give them that trip as one of their Christmas gifts. And so we got each of them a new travel backpack for Christmas. This was something they needed because we were using old carry-ons with wheels falling off and handles broken, and we had just gotten to the point where we just couldn't deal with it anymore. And so we got each of them a backpack that could hold all of their stuff for that trip to New York City. And inside their backpacks, when we had them open them up on Christmas morning, were tickets we printed to a Broadway show that we were taking them to. They went wild because they had never seen a show on Broadway before. But do you see what I mean about how that gift of those backpacks, which was something they needed? So even if you're talking about the 4 different categories of things to give that you've adopted, such as the something they want, need, wear, read, etc., the backpack could fall right into the need category because they needed backpacks to go on that trip. It was so fun for them and for us because they had something physical to open that was going to be useful and great for them. And now they've used those backpacks for years, going to summer camp and retreats and on other trips we've taken as a family. We still use those same backpacks now. But when we sat down that fall and we planned out what to get them for Christmas, we planned it around what they might love to do, a January trip to New York City, not what they'd want to have. If you take this principle and you apply it as you're building your kids' Christmas lists and trying to think about giving them gifts that will have meaning and will be special to them and will last far beyond the hype of Christmas morning, then you defy the materialism that can take root in them by just opening up something that makes them look good, like a high-end shirt or a fancy pair of shoes, or for littles, the toy that their friend has that they screamed about when you pulled them away from it to go home. Is there anything wrong with gifts like that sometimes? No, not at all. Like I said in last week's episode, we give our kids gifts like that on occasion. We actually do give our kids gifts sometimes that are something that they want just because they want it. A fancy pullover or a new pair of shoes or a toy that they saw at Target, something like that. But those gifts are the exception. We don't want their hearts attached to stuff. We don't want them looking at gifts and thinking, this makes me awesome because I own this. We want their gifts to make their relationships better. We want their gifts to enhance their experience of life and people. And that stuff is just something that they really just don't care that much about. The person with the most toys doesn't win. We all know that, right? Stuff means nothing if we don't have people to share it with and people to love well and shared experiences that draw us close. So that's the thing I wanted to tell you and give you this concept this week that has been so powerful in our own parenting and for you to think about the rest of this month as you're shopping. We want our kids to be delighted on Christmas morning, right? None of us want a bunch of rules or self-imposed guidelines that keep us from being able to just love them in a really personal and awesome and amazing way, right? We want them to be delighted and filled with joy, and we want to be this tangible expression in their lives of how deeply loved and known and special they are. That's what I want for my kids. I don't want Christmas and gift giving to feel hard or feel like I can't just be me as a mom and them be them. I love this time of year and picking out gifts for my kids, and I want to surprise them and love them and delight them and see their joy. What I love about thinking through this principle is that nothing in this diminishes that. In fact, it sets a groundwork in your life to build on and to surprise and delight and love them in ways you had never even thought of because you've never thought to process it or think about it this way. That's what I want you to take from this podcast. That's what I want for your holidays and for your marriage this Christmas and for you to be able to talk to your husband or wife. And instead of just thinking about a dollar amount or are we overdoing it with stuff, to think about what your kids love to do and how to elevate experiences over things in their hearts and help point them to the value of relationship and to see how special a gift like that is, even for your really little ones. This has helped me and Jason be on the same page when we might not have been on the same page at all had we not had this North Star when it came to gift giving to our kids. Build their Christmas lists around what they love to do, not what they want to have. I'm going to close with this today. Several years ago, we wanted to get each of our kids a new electronic item. Our oldest son needed a laptop for school because he was entering high school, and we were ready to get our middle school son a phone. A couple of our younger ones wanted a Kindle that they could play some games on and do some reading, and so we decided that Christmas we were going to splurge on each of them and get them each a kind of expensive electronic device. Jason and I sat and talked about it and thought about it and prayed about how we wanted to go about it. How could we give them these gifts and still be true to the principle I've shared with you today? How can we give them these expensive gifts and really teach them in the moment about who they are and what we value and how we wanted them to use these electronics for good? Our youngest daughter was 7 at the time, so we had an age range of like 7 to 14, 15 maybe. We were still deep in the little years over here. We actually went about Christmas morning the same way we usually do. We opened up all of our gifts in the family room, and most of those gifts that were things that would enhance their experiences with each other, and we wanted Christmas morning to unfold in a really special way like it always had. We didn't want their hearts and minds to be all in and all focused on these electronic gifts that we were giving them that were more expensive and a bigger gift that was a little outside the norm for us. We decided to make them a bonus gift of sorts. Jason decided to write the kids a letter. It was a letter from Mr. C, Santa Claus. This really isn't about Santa or not Santa, so if you do Santa or you don't do Santa, that has nothing to do with this. But I'm going to read this letter to you that he wrote to them. He put this letter underneath our family room Christmas tree for the kids to find last after all the other gifts were opened. This was one of Jason's shining moments in parenting. He encapsulated in this letter what we wanted them to know about the extraordinary gift they were receiving that was outside, well, a lot outside of our norm. He wanted to use this moment and make the most of it. I'm going to close out this podcast with this letter because it captures so much of our heart as parents for our kids each Christmas. Christmas Day, 2018. Hey, Holly, Whit, Lincoln, Max, and Jack. You guys have something really special, a family to share Christmas with. Look around at each other. Remember that your brothers and sister are some of the best gifts you could ever receive. You know, the reason we celebrate Christmas is because of the great gift that God gave us over 2,000 years ago when He sent His Son, Jesus. He was God, but He became a child just like you. He lived a perfect, sinless life, the life we wish we could live, and then He died a criminal's death, the death we all deserve. He did that for you, for all of us, the greatest gift ever given. And that's the reason we give gifts today, to celebrate that greatest gift. Think of these gifts as a reminder of the gift of God's own Son, your Savior and your King. Remember His love and His generosity whenever you use or play with your new gifts, and show that same love and generosity to others in your life. I noticed you had another Christmas tree back in your playroom, so I left one more special gift there. Let it remind you of the greatest gift from our Heavenly Father. Merry Christmas, Mr. C.